Today's passage is from the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verses 10 through 18. John 20, 10 through 18. Then the disciples went back to their homes, but Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize it was Jesus. "Woman," he said, "why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" Thinking he was a gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned to him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet returned to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am returning to my Father and your Father, to my God and to your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them all the things that he had said to her. Rejoice. Today, above all, is a day of rejoicing. Christ is alive. Sin and death are defeated. Our God is alive, and we have a reason for hope. Because nothing, no human force on earth, no angel in heaven, no devil in hell, not even death itself can separate us from the God who loves us. I don't mean that metaphorically. I don't mean that symbolically. I don't mean it in a touchy-feely, feel-good kind of way. I don't even mean it in the way the world says that when someone dies, they live on in our memories, the way they affect our lives. Nothing against that. It's a nice sentiment. It's just not what I mean right now. I mean, death literally does not separate us from our God. Christ is alive, and sin is defeated, and we have good news. And something I'm ironic with, I think, something that holds us back from fully rejoicing is that it is too good of news. We have a problem accepting it because the news is simply too great, too wondrous to think that Jesus really is alive. I assume everyone here has heard the word cynic. A cynic is someone who thinks that people are motivated by self-interest instead of by honesty or integrity. That's not always what the word meant. Cynicism was developed in ancient Greece, and it was developed in response to a perceived corruption among the leaders and the philosophers in Greece. The cynics said that these leaders were corrupt, that they talked a good talk, but they didn't walk the walk. The leader of the cynics used to go around holding a lantern in the middle of the day, saying he was looking for one honest man among the Athenians. Cynics called people away from that kind of corruption and told them to live with integrity. Until about 100 years ago, that's what cynicism meant. It meant that there was corruption, dishonesty, and it called people away from that and towards integrity. It's not what the word means anymore. Now if someone says they're a cynic, they're not simply saying that there are corrupt people, but they're saying everyone is corrupt. They assume that there is no integrity. So now when someone claims to be a cynic, they're not saying there is dishonesty in the world. They're saying that honesty itself is a lie. There is no one who is ever honest, and all claims of integrity are false. And when people get into that mindset, they have a problem accepting the good news of Jesus. How can someone accept this wonderful news when they think simple things like integrity and honesty are false? And when they reject the simple ideas of honesty, how can they ever accept a God who always keeps his promises? How can they accept there's a God who has a plan for us, even in the worst of our moments? How can they ever turn to a God who loves us no matter what, and who has said that even death is not the end? So they have a problem accepting this good news because it seems too good to be true. This isn't a new problem. From the very beginning, people have had problems accepting this good news. The moment that Jesus rose from the dead, people had a problem believing it. So today, I want to talk about the first person who was confronted with this good news. Jesus had talked about it before, but it was really when he rose from the dead that people had to face the reality that what he said might really be true. There really is a hope beyond this life. So I want to talk about the first person who was confronted with this magnificent news. And that was Mary Magdalene. Side note, Magdalene was not her last name. It was a title. Magdalene means from the city of Magdala, which is a small fishing village on the western coast of the Sea of Galilee. And we know that Mary Magdalene was one of 3 women who went to anoint Jesus' body after his death. The other was Mary, the mother of James, and Salome. And John only mentions Mary Magdalene. Wasn't saying the other 3 others weren't there. He's just saying this is the one he's going to focus on. Mary went to the tomb of Jesus. She saw the stone had been rolled away. She saw the body was gone, and she ran to find the disciples. First, she found Peter and John, and they went running to the tomb to see what was there. And we're told they arrived, and they saw the stone was rolled away. They saw the body was gone, but they didn't understand. We're told John believed, but he didn't understand. And finally, John and Peter went back home, but Mary stayed at the tomb, weeping. And as she was weeping, Jesus himself approached her. But Mary didn't recognize Jesus. Okay, I want to pause for a second to defend Mary here. People often wonder how Mary could not recognize Jesus. Some people even suggested that this was something supernatural, that Jesus was preventing her from recognizing him, sort of the way he did with the 2 disciples who he walked with on the road to Emmaus at the end of Luke's gospel. It's possible, but I think there's a much simpler explanation to this that doesn't require any miraculous works on Jesus' part. Mary was grieving. She was upset to the point of tears. And especially when we are upset, we see what we expect to see. Mary expected Jesus to be dead. She expected that her hope had come to an end. And she let her expectation color her view of reality. And so Jesus approached her as she was crying, and he said, "Why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" Now Mary knew Jesus was dead. So whoever was talking to her couldn't be Jesus. She expected him to be gone. She expected there to be no hope left. And she expected there to be a gardener taking care of the cemetery. So she assumed that's who it had to be, because there was no hope that Jesus was really alive again. And so she responded as if this was a gardener. Said, "If you've taken his body away, let me know where he is. I'll go get it." Well, then Jesus changed everything with one word. The one word was Mary. Jesus called Mary by her name, and then she really looked at him. When Jesus called Mary by her name, she looked past her expectations, past her preconceived notions, past everything that she knew. Let it go all flying out the window because of a reality that was right in front of her. And I think this is still something we struggle with today. We have an expectation of hopelessness. We live in a world that says that some things are just too good to be true. We all experience pain and loss in life. I think right now, if I were to ask everyone in the room, what's the biggest heartache of your life? Imagine for most of us, there would be an answer that comes flying right to mind. We are used to suffering heartache in life. Not only do we experience it in our own lives, we experience it through others. Through our friends and our acquaintances, we see loss and pain. We turn on the news and we see suffering and cruelty and destruction and violence. We look at the world around us and we see loss and dashed hopes and dreams that never come to fruition. And we see all of this and we struggle to believe something so good as the news of Jesus. We struggle with the idea that this really could be true. Orson Welles famously said, if you want a happy ending, it depends, of course, on where you stop the story. I think that mindset can get into us. We think, if we want a happy ending, it depends on where you stop the story. Because if you let a story go long enough, then this world says it always ends in tragedy. This world says if we let the story go long enough, then eventually every story ends in tragedy and every hope is dashed. And so this dark view of the world influences us, and we begin to expect things to go this way. We tend to expect loss and hopes to be dashed. And then we are confronted with the good news of Jesus Christ. We're confronted with a God who has conquered sin and death. We're confronted with the idea that Jesus really has risen from the dead. That there is a life beyond this life. That nothing can separate us from the love of God that is in Jesus Christ. That even death cannot for one instant separate us from the God who loves us. And this flies in the face of everything the world teaches us to accept. And it becomes hard for us to believe in. For Mary, it took Jesus calling her by name. It was when Jesus called her personally, by name, that she saw past her expectations. It was when Jesus called her personally, by her name, that she let go of everything she thought she knew. When he called her by name, that she saw the living God and had hope, a dare to dream that it really might be true. She had hope that Jesus really is alive. And still today, God calls people by name. But to hear that call, we need to set aside our expectations. Sometimes we need to set aside our selfish expectations. We need to set aside the expectation that God is going to fix every problem and right every wrong immediately in this life. We need to set aside our expectation of the so-called health and wealth gospel. The idea that if we believe in Jesus and say the right prayer, then we'll always have good health and have lots of money and never have any real problems. Because God never promises anything like that. But beyond that, even more importantly, we need to set aside our expectation of hopelessness. We need to set aside our expectation that dreams are dashed, that hope can't be real. Because we have a God that conquers those expectations. We have a God that conquers sin and death and brings new life. One of my personal favorite movies is The Princess Bride. It's a fun film. It is lighthearted. It also happens to have one of the most depressing lines in all cinema. At one point in that movie, the man in black says to Princess Buttercup, "Life is pain, princess. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something." I think that mindset can invade us. We get this idea that anyone who would come with good news is just selling something. And yet the good news of Jesus keeps coming. Because not only does he offer new life, not only does he offer a life past this death of this world, he offers it for nothing. He offers it as a free gift of God. And so we struggle to believe that. Because everyone who says that life is in pain is selling something. Yet our God offers hope for nothing. He offers it a free gift. Not the way the world gives. Not a gift where he's expecting something in return. Not a gift where you can get it if you're good enough. You deserve it. But a gift to those who don't deserve it. A free gift of a God who loves us. That, yes, there will be death in this world, but even after this life is gone, even after this mortal body has decayed to nothing, there is a new life. A life that this world can't touch. A life that death has no power over. A life that comes in Jesus Christ. And it calls us to set aside our expectations. calls us to set aside the hopelessness of this world for a hope that is in Jesus Christ. So rejoice. Be glad. Our God is alive. As you go home today, as you gather with family, as you eat food, as you search for eggs, rejoice. Christ has conquered sin and death. We have a reason for hope. Today, above all, is a day for rejoicing.
You have to go here?
We're about to stand to sing our invitation hymn. And as we stand to sing, if you need joy, if you've given in to this world's expectations of hopelessness, if you've given in to the nothingness of this world, to the loss, to the pain, to the idea that there can't be hope, and you need the joy of God, the hope that surpasses understanding, the hope that surpasses this world, it's here. It's available for anyone who wants it. It is a love of a God that cannot be defeated by anything, by any power on earth, on heaven, in hell. Not even death itself can touch this power, this life. If you need that joy, you have an opportunity today. As you'll stand with me, sing. And as we sing our invitation hymn, which is Jesus paid it all, and we're going to sing just the first verse.